Okay, let's give a little bit for everyone to get on. Just wanted to walk through kind of the beginning of this, go through some of the suspects, go through some new videos, some new interactive maps, Google Earth, the white Kia I spotted at El Charros, and kind of just really take a step back and go through everything. Again, the FBI is now saying to look at the weeks prior. We're going to go over the Google Trends, and I'm going to lay out everything for you. Thanks so much for watching. And okay, so let's start out here, and please feel the comment below right there. Okay, so we have the Nancy Guthrie approximate timeline. Okay, January 31st, 2026, 5:32 p.m. Nancy travels to local family's home, right? Annie and Tomato. Family drops Nancy off at home, and garage door opens, garage door closes. The Uber driver, David Mack, right now is being investigated. I think he's cleared. He's not a suspect, but they want to know more about the Uber driver. Doorbell camera disconnects at 1:47 a.m. 2:12 a.m. Software detects person on camera. No video available. No subscription. FBI was able to pull that information, obviously. At 2:28, her pacemaker app shows a disconnect from the phone. I personally think when you wake somebody up in the middle of the night with a ski mask on and has a pacemaker, I'm hoping, I'm praying for the best. I do think with being a pacemaker and being startled in the middle of the night, that could cause some pretty big trouble. So if we go here, we have, let me just open up the screen. Okay, so we have 11:56 a.m. Family checks on Nancy. 12:03 p.m. The 911 call was first made. 12:15 the patrols arrive. Okay, so we'll go through some of the slides. Now, we obviously, this is a real basic thing. Here are the photos of the suspect. It could be a male or a female. A lot of people think it's either a female. Some, on the side angle looks like a male. To me, it's person's built like a male from the chest up, and then also looks like he's wearing like Dickies jeans. Looks like male jeans. Here he is where rumors have been where like he's almost stoned or high, where he's using like bushes. He used the Wi-Fi jammer. We'll go over that. The Wi-Fi jammer wasn't effective. It was in his back pocket. You can get those at Walmart. You put the actual earpiece in your ear, and it registers a high current of static. That's how you can tell the Wi-Fi is down. That didn't work out, but the one in the surrounding area did knock out one of the cameras. So we'll show you on an interactive map the Wi-Fi cameras as well. Okay. Again, I'm just going from start to finish really quick, breaking down some things about the case that we already know, and then we'll go through video documentary. We'll go through points of interest and things like that. Okay. This is what somebody gave me a little bit ago, a few days ago, line of sight from nest to the truck. So if you can see this, I personally can't, but I was sent this from a viewer. A lot of our viewers are like excellent sleuths. I mean, from watching JLR work his heart out, Mark the Shark, big shout out, Dad's Gone Live. These people were boots on the ground and they've worked endlessly. I mean, JLR over 43 days, 18 hours a day. I mean, you got to give that guy the most credit you ever seen. Again, all super chats go to those people that are boots on the ground. But yeah, so this is what I got. 5820 North Camino Drive. Basically, if you can see this, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. If somebody, hey, what's up, everybody? If you can see my mouse, let me know. But do you see where I'm circling on the? I finally am able to see a car light right there. Can you see that? Can anybody see that? Where's my mouse not showing? Right there. Hey, what's up, Mindy? Hey, Yvonne, I've been waiting all day. Cool. Hey, Rodenia Bullington, what's up? Can you guys see that though for me? Because it literally took me all day. No, you can't. Okay. Okay, so if we zoom in here, look to the left. God, I don't know why it doesn't show the mouse. So the left photo, the circular photo, there's a little bright light that looks like a car. Very hard to see. It took me forever to see. I actually didn't believe the photo at first. But no, can't see it. Okay. We'll have to, let me see if I can get my mouse in here. 1 second. I don't think you can. Okay. Oh, well. Anyway, so what this person did was zoom in and use different contrasting on his camera to be able to show me that there was a car that was actually parked there. I think it was 3 perpetrators, right? You have a spotter, you have the guy that was in charge of disconnecting the Nest cameras, you have your security, your audio surveillance team, and then you have the person that broke in the back green door, which I'll show, and the spotter, that's where the car was parked, to kind of be on the lookout. This is something you've probably seen a million times on my show, but this is Google Trends. So like Nancy Guthrie, 411, March 15th to March 22nd, someone searched for her 100 times. Where is Savannah Guthrie's, that one cut off. Nancy Guthrie's address was searched 4 times on December 22nd, 2025. Nancy Guthrie's house was searched 55 times on January 31st. Can you guys see the slide actually? Wait, did I put the slide up on the screen? Yeah. You can see the Google Trend search data, correct? Okay. And then you have, like, for example, we'd have to take these comments off the screen for just 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. Just so I can read this. Here you have Nancy Guthrie address again, January 31st was searched 59 times. 22nd was searched 4. Where does Savannah Guthrie live? Her house. Okay, go on to the next slide. Nancy Guthrie image search, which I think is very important. This is someone that wanted to know who the target is, what she looks like, and who most recent photos. So someone searched 32 different times. It could have been on Facebook. It could have been on Google. Anything on Google to get the most up-to-date view of Nancy Guthrie. And then we have Nancy Guthrie's house was searched 55 times. Also, what was searched was the Nancy Guthrie. Does she live alone? Does she have a husband? Does she have security detail? Does she have CCTV? So there was a lot of different other searches that I wrote down that I didn't take screenshots of that I'll actually walk you through that. This is a pedophile that lives within a 1 mile radius of Nancy Guthrie. I'm not saying he's a suspect. Again, it's a pedophile. I don't feel shame showing him because, pedophiles are public knowledge. This is a shot in the dark, right? But a pedophile typically is someone that it's hard to get a job, right? It's hard for them to get a job. It's hard for them to get back into the environment once they're out of jail. He's 6 feet tall. He's 210 pounds. Not saying this is him. Probably a less than a percentage of a chance, but there's 5 pedophiles within a 2 mile radius of Nancy Guthrie. Always got to check pedophiles out, right? Okay. Next, we have the layout of the house, which I'm sure you've seen. The back is the pool. The front is the front entrance. I believe the perpetrator went in on the left, okay? I'm going to read a list of things. Now, the FBI all of a sudden is going back now. The FBI needs to figure out the past week, okay? But so here are some of the things that I wrote down, okay? The pool company, right? They're there every week. Who works at the pool company? Utility company, garage door service, electrical, maids, landscapers, contractors, handymans, the restaurants, which we'll be going over. The church group, very important. St. Anthony's Presbyterian Church, the virtual church online that they're looking at. Oil change places, tire places. Okay, senior citizens are friends with a lot. And again, I'm not trying to isolate or discriminate against senior citizens. I'm just saying they're typically people that, as you get older in life, they have less and less, some talk a lot, but some, less people want to walk up and start a conversation. They get kind of lonely. My parents are kind of lonely. You have friends or relatives. Check Nancy's phone book. Did Savannah have any enemies? Life insurance? Any police she knew in the area that just stop by and say, hey, road workers in the area, construction workers, okay? Uber groceries, clothing stores, jewelry stores that she may have been known at, like, her favorite place to shop. Oh, that's Savannah Guthrie's mom. Med spas, places that where maybe she got Botox, fillers, skin rejuvenation. Other stuff that, utility companies, jewelry stores I have, Uber, bank tellers, right? A bank teller, you're going to the bank. Maybe she's old fashioned when she gets a check or a cash or like still writes checks out and goes inside the branch to order checks so she can write Merry Christmas checks. A lot of older people still use checks instead of gift cards. So you have all these different things. home invasions in the area, right? Break-ins in Tucson, garage door services, the Nest people that work at the Nest company. And I'm not throwing these people under the bus. I just think there's so many different people that you meet during the day. I mean, Savannah's grandkids, did they go to a hockey rink? Did they go to soccer practice? What did they do when they visited? Okay. So I'm just laying out a bunch of different ideas that I'm sure the FBI went through. I'm not saying anything that's like earth shattering. This is what I believe, I think. Let me turn back on comments. What about the UPS driver late at night? Beautiful, Mindy, super, super smart. Hey, Wanda, what's up? UPS, Amazon, that was big. That one went right over my head, so very smart. Yes, we can zoom in. No, I can't see it. No. Hello, Ted. I've been waiting all day. What's up, everybody? Okay, so is this the Kia? Because if so, I just remember reports coming out saying that the Kia was a drunk person driving around, and then they drove a bunch of times around the street, but could have been Nancy fighting for her life in the Kia, right? The blue Malibu. Who was the person out of the blue Malibu that was screaming? So there's a lot of different things that are coming out. Hey, Ted, Savannah suspect. Hey, Ted, Savannah suspect, her sister, and links Tommaso to the masked man. Okay, I'm going to show that too. Why at 10:30? Right. The one was by the garage. Yes, correct. Okay. Here's an up close photo. There's the Kia, supposedly the Kia, driving away. Okay. Why the like weird footage? Like, show us more. Sheriff Nanos needs to give us more. The FBI, I'm sure, is doing their due diligence now that are professionals on it. But this was a thing that I can show. I don't know if it's still up, but this was a local map of all the cellular data. If you look at blue, those are the cell phone towers. If you look at those red dots, those are the OSM videos. And then they have the traffic cam videos. So I have an interactive map that we were going to actually show, and we had somebody working on it to pull all the live feed from January 15th through that February 1st, February 2nd. However, last night, it all disappeared. This interactive map that we used had 0 OSN cameras. So that means the FBI must have got a hold of the traffic cameras, and now they've erased everything and they're going through it, or there's something involved with the system where, you know, it blanks out and just erases this interactive map that we've connected. This is what it showed. So what we were trying to do until the FBI removed all the OSM cameras is you click on, this is the live feeds, but you pick your point of where you think the car's at, right? Because they said maybe they used walkie-talkies, okay? So here are just up top are just photos. Here, let me turn on the chat. I can't see anybody. Here are just the photos of what the driving would look like. This is not the times of the incidents. These are just the live feeds we were trying to get before data. On the bottom, there's me with a flashlight in my mouth next to the perpetrator, okay? I cropped myself next to him, went up to my Nest doorbell, put a traffic light in my mouth, a little flashlight in my mouth, and look how you can't see me. What the heck did he have in his mouth? How small was that little flashlight? What was it, like glow in the dark vampire teeth or something? It just didn't make any sense. That's this. I have the same exact Nest camera, and that's me at the same exact length from my Nest camera, and that's how I look. Okay. Now that's how the suspect looked. Now I don't know if that's FBI being able to pull more data, adjust the camera differently, right? Don't know, but wanted to test out that theory. I found it weird. You couldn't even tell the shape of my head. You can't even tell there's a person. You just see a flashlight. Okay. And I'm going to walk people through videos and do other things, but I wanted to put everything into like a quick review. Okay. This is, again, I can show you this on the interactive map. This is the Wi-Fi jammer. The handheld low-power jammer usually knocks out a few homes. This is the walkie-talkie that I showed. This goes in the back pocket. They've showed this multiple times, and it failed. It's cheap. It's rinky-dinky. It doesn't work. Tucson's a very tough area up in the mountains with cellular data as it is. So I think that's why they had trouble actually knocking out the camera. I think the guy was actually shocked that it wasn't working. But again, you're up near the mountains in that terrain, and it's just tough. It's bad. It's bad cell Wi-Fi service. Now the outer ring that knocked out, you can't see it here, but I'll zoom in. These are like the little bit more high-powered, non-military grade yet, but they're Wi-Fi jammers. If you have a device that is connected with a hardwire, you won't be able to shut it down. But if you have just Wi-Fi Bluetooth, it should knock down half a block. Okay, that didn't. If you look at Brian Enton's video, it did knock out one of the cameras, which was a key camera, which was almost like on a, I want to say a concrete fence. It did knock it out, but that was a big miss up. This is a photo somebody sent me of, we have some track marks. Don't know what this was. Was this some kind of, was somebody wrapped in a tarp pushed out on a wheelbarrow? Probably not. Was this a truck marking? The thing I didn't like about the crime scene was there was too many people. The media, Sheriff Nanos, in my opinion, and I don't like to slam anybody outright, but nobody had control of that crime scene since day one. You had the media look like a bunch of carnival people with tents out there. You had people with, what's the instrument to search for gold? Metal detectors. You had all different law enforcement agencies, from FBI to ATF to local law enforcement. This is gravel. This is sand. This is key. This is not like grass. Okay, this is where you can get footprints, where you can get tire tracks. You should be able to get something from this. This should not be a bunch of people walking around aimlessly. Okay, you close off the scenes. You check every single in the house, right? You check the drains for blood. You check the plumbing. You check the carpet. You use luminol. You look for trace evidence of blood. They didn't take the doormat. Why wouldn't you take the doormat to check for the DNA? You check for fingerprints. You don't want anybody touching anything. Okay, I saw a lot of people walking on without even gloves on. Until you mark off each scene and you spend hours at each physical room, then every little hair fiber, anything, Kleenex, anything you could think of in each room, you got to take pictures, document it, and you have to put it in evidence, right? So I think they did and again, I wasn't there. I can't pass judgment. All I can say is I saw a herd of people. It looked as busy as a mall on Christmas walking in and out of there, forgetting different things, forgetting that there was a camera on top of the roof. I mean, what was that? Stuff like that is just unnecessary. You had Sheriff Nanos. Again, I'm not here to bash people. He's probably worked a long time in law enforcement and solved some pretty good cases. This might have been ahead of his skis, but he was at a basketball game the second day. And it's not like somebody can't have a life, but when there's a lady manhunt missing from someone that gets stolen out of their house at 2 a.m, maybe you should stick around with your team. Again, that's just my opinion. Blood splatter reveals Nancy Guthrie was likely wrapped up and carried out of her home as former FBI agent doubts missing woman walked out. Okay, so I typically, a lot of the cases we analyze, and there's been quite a bit lately, where you have this, we have the FBI against law enforcement against FBI. Law enforcement doesn't want FBI to get in. I typically will side with these FBI field agents, especially when when you look them up, and you can find them on LinkedIn. And again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but when they have a long tenure with the FBI, they're skilled field agents and they know what they're doing. Now, here's what a lot of other people, let me make sure I'm just saying hi to the chat. Hey, Ted, what's up? Hey, everybody. Okay, so this was the bandmate. This was going around. And again, these people, the family's completely innocent. Okay, I want to say Savannah Guthrie came out, I want to say 4 hours ago or 12 hours ago, and she was livid. She was frustrated. She was aggravated to say it was Tommaso. I know a lot of people still speculate that. That is fine. All I'm saying is from word for word verbatim, that's from Savannah Guthrie's mouth. I just wanted to show when this first photo came out, again, I look like the guy if you put the ski mask on, right? So I'm not going to sit here and just point blindly at people. But the bandmate, that, I can kind of see it. But again, you can see it in a lot of people's eyes. Tommaso, no way that's the guy. His face is way too different than the shape of the person with the mask on. But yeah, the bandmate now has been brought up. Yep, exactly. I don't think it's Dominic Evans either. I'm just letting you know I'm running through all the different things. El Charo Restaurant. Here's what I found the other day. I was waiting for JLR. They weren't open yet. They were closed for 2 hours. So I was like, well, I'm not going to just listen while, JLR does a good job, but he was talking to viewers. It was like 2 hours until it opened. So I'm like, let me go on Google Map and let me just search around on the back parking lot. Typically, I was a waiter before. They always tell waiters to park in the back, so the customers can park in the front. I found a white Kia. This could be related. It could not be related. I thought it was a little compelling. This is from the Google search on Google Earth. You could find it yourself if you email me at tedinvestigates@gmail.com. I can show you this. Again, this is a long shot. There's rumors. A lot of people messaged me saying, oh, the FBI didn't go there. The New York Post said the FBI did go there. If you're a restaurant, you're in business for 100 years, you don't want bad publicity, right? They claim that they've started, like they were the first people on earth to make the chimichanga. They're probably a delicious restaurant. Savannah Guthrie goes there. It's probably a wonderful experience. They do not want any part of telling anybody the FBI is there. They're not going to tell reporters. Don't think for a second anybody that works there that wants to keep the livelihood of their job isn't going to listen to their boss and tell a reporter. And I'm not knocking reporters, but they're not going to fill the reporters in unless, maybe they screw up, but there's just no reason why. And a lot of people were like, well, they told the reporters no FBI was there. Well, they're going to say that, okay? There's many cases where they said the FBI was there. There's one at the tip of my tongue right now that I can't even think of that they said the FBI wasn't there and the FBI was there and they busted the guy. It was, I can't even think. Forget it. But it was at the tip of my tongue, and they were saying, oh, yeah, the FBI wasn't there. We're fine. And, of course, the FBI was there. The FBI is everywhere. The FBI is going to go everywhere they can. They're going to go to a restaurant that Nancy ate a few weeks before, and they're definitely going to interview everybody. I mean, that's just protocol. That's, and why should the restaurant tell you that? The Brian Koberger case, Green, the salad restaurant, Mad Greens, that the girls worked at, they said the FBI and Idaho State Police was not there. And then we found out later in the transcript that he was there. So just a scenario. They don't want the bad press. I'm sure most of you guys can realize that. Here's another photo of the car. Okay, wait. I'm gonna catch up with the chat too. Okay, so this is just another one of the photos that I wanted to show you. Okay, this is, and I don't. Okay, let me just catch up with the chat real quick. Hey Ted, hey Untamable, how's it going? Greetings. Yep, it's not Dominic Evans. No, I figured. I just wanted to show we were just kind of going through like a timeline of kind of where things were. Anyone know any new updates about Miss Nancy? The FBI is going backwards. That's why they're going back. They're talking to the Uber driver. They're working backwards right now. That is the newest update right now. Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that the FBI was not there. There's just no way. I ran a company for 15 years, and I would never say law enforcement was there. It's none of the reporter's business. It's no one's business. They could have just talked to somebody for 10 minutes and made the assumption that these weren't the right people. So there's no way we could, just because reporters say that. Reporters can lie just like interrogators because they're trying to get news. So they're trying to figure out what's right. And a cook could have just said, no, I don't know. No, I mean, you're going to swear in court that the cook's telling the truth? I mean, come on. So anyways, does anyone on here do true crime research? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. That's what we do all day. Okay, so yeah, the true crime research was the key I found. The true crime research was the St. Anthony's Church, where they were talking to people in this church group that was part of the virtual church. Yep, day 45 for nothing. So yeah, so this is the St. Anthony's Presbyterian Church. They were looking at two similar suspects. We had a caller in the show that brought this up. Again, this is all speculation. It's not anybody. Hello, Marion. I'm good. I'm tired of the snow. Yep, me too. I had to shovel 30 inches. I was exhausted. Hey, Ted, everyone just got home from work. Hope I'm not too late. Did you hear about the keys and the new glove? Yep. We've heard about that. Okay, so this is the slide. Now I'm going to pull up. We have a latest video, actually. 1 second. Let's go up to date here. Just be 1 second. Wanted to get. There's a lot of other cars being identified as we speak right now. There's actually a Honda Accord, a dark one that I just seen, which was strange. Just give me 1 second. We're going to play this really quick. Unless they took it down. I think this was the one. I wonder if they took it down, though. Wait. 1 second. Let's listen to Brian for a second.
Couple of big developments today. You know, we've had some slow days, but there's some big things
Yep,
that have
St.
come out
Andrews.
over the last 24 hours.
Thank
First of
you for
all,
correcting me.
new reports about additional images that the FBI has been able to obtain from Nancy Guthrie's surveillance cameras. Remember, we knew they got the images from the front camera because that's how we got the pictures of the suspect, but she had other cameras in the back, on the side of her house by the pool, and we are now learning that the FBI has been able to obtain some images from those cameras, but there's a catch, and there's some issues there. So I'm going to explain all of that in this episode, but overall, it's good news. Also, just interesting comments from the Pima County Sheriff. I'm thinking more and more about this. He just did another interview where he was asked, do you think the suspect could strike again? And he immediately responded, absolutely, which goes back to my episode yesterday with retired FBI agent Steve Moore, who was saying the same thing. The sheriff is also still saying they believe it's targeted, but that he can't say that 100%. I'm going to get into the latest comments from the sheriff. And then also, I really believe at the end of the day, DNA is what may crack this case. Remember, they've been having issues with the DNA from inside Nancy's house because they say that it's mixed, which means it could be multiple people's DNA in one sample. I actually went to a DNA lab at Arizona State University. It was so interesting. I can't wait for you guys to see this. Showed me actually how the process works. What does it mean if DNA is mixed? How hard is it to sort out? What do they think is going to happen with the Nancy Guthrie case? I mean, these are people who have done this for a living for a long time. And there were some things that they really zeroed in on. The flashlight in the suspect's mouth could be a big deal when it comes to DNA, and they'll explain why. So I'm going to get into all of it in this episode of Brian Enton Investigates. Hey guys. All right. So again, I'm here outside Nancy Guthrie's house, day 41 in the search for Nancy.
Okay, we're going to go over this for just a second. I just want a quick update from the FBI. I'm sure you guys already heard all this, but I just wanted to share this quick screenshot. Just bear with me for 1 second. If I can ever do this thing right, it takes forever. Okay, the newest FBI. I'm sure you guys seen this. Newest FBI agents. This is what I was saying earlier. FBI agents on Nancy Guthrie case zeroing in on 2 key dates before she was abducted. Now, I was wondering if anybody knows about those 2 key dates. Could they be tied back to all the Google searches, Google Trends, and Apple Map dates? Oh, a lot of Ohio people in here. Yeah, she had a heart condition. She walked out. Okay, we're going to go back here. I promise we'll stick with this not too long, but I just want to get a quick recap on it. And then I need to find some other stuff. So it kind of buys me time for a minute to able to get my other stuff on stage. Just 1 second.
Today is Friday. It's a really, really hot day here in Tucson, one of the hotter days lately. And apparently next week it's going to get really, really hot, which the people who live here are just like, yeah, it's no surprise. Wait till summer. But I wanted to get into the latest with you. I
Yes,
think
it
perhaps
was
the
the
biggest development right now is this new information coming out about additional images that have been recovered from Nancy
Yeah, I think it was
Guthrie's
the images. Yeah, I've
surveillance
seen that
cameras,
Google Trends.
which is a pretty big deal. You know, we knew that Nancy had other cameras. There's cameras on the side and the back of the house near the pool. And we knew, the sheriff had told me actually last
The
time I
11th and the
interviewed him, that
24th
Google was trying
January.
to go back and find those images. And apparently they have found some images. And this is reporting from ABC and Fox, who were able to source some of this new information. But they say that images were able to be pulled off of some of these cameras in the
Monday,
backside
what's
of
up,
the
Monday?
house. The images were recovered in recent weeks from motion-activated cameras trained on the swimming pool, the backyard, and the side yard. They were unable to recover video footage. So this part is interesting. Unable to recover video footage, but thumbnail images were captured when the cameras were triggered by motion. And so they've been able to recover the thumbnails, not the full video, but the thumbnails. But the cameras recorded nothing suspicious.
Have you guys heard about the mystery man claiming he saw
investigators were
Nancy in
able to
Mexico
observe
5
several
days ago?
people in the back and side yards over an unspecified period prior to the abduction. After Nancy Guthrie was taken, law enforcement officers are seen near the pool on some of these images. So they've been able to see police on the images. The cameras captured nothing on the night of the abduction, though. So that's important and unfortunate. But they did capture people in the days before.
Okay, just 1 second. This was actually we need to go to the newer one. I apologize. 1 second. Here's the more current one. I'm sorry about that. I clicked the wrong one.
It is day 44 in the search
Day
for Nancy
44.
Guthrie. You can tell my backdrop's a little different. I'm home now in Florida. Came home just to kind of recharge. See my dog. See hi, Scout.
Let's see what
I
he has
miss
to
her
say,
so
though.
much.
I'm just
So happy
curious
I'm
on
home.
those dates.
But I'm obviously staying on the case. And there's been some developments. A new date that I have found that investigators are looking into. I just spoke to a neighbor who I hadn't spoken to before, so I'm going to get into that. Also, billboards. You guys have been sending me pictures.
Billboards in
Billboards
California.
I've been going up in different parts of the country. And there's something else I forgot that's new today that I also got. Oh, yeah, something about Nancy's front door that someone in the neighborhood pointed out to me that I hadn't thought about before that could be important. I'm going to get into all of it in this episode. Brian Enton investigates. Hey guys, so as I said, I'm back home in Florida. I was in Arizona for 42 days, which I can't believe. I think it's the longest I've ever been away from home before. I mean, I travel every week for stories pretty much.
I did not know that.
I don't think I've ever stayed 42 days in one place nonstop. The Idaho murders, I was there, I think, for a month straight before I went home for a break. And then with Gabby Petito, I think it was the same, but Gabby Petito, you know, where I was outside Brian Laundrie's was kind of easier because it was in Florida, so I could scoot home on the weekends sometimes. So I don't think I've ever been away from home for 42 days. But I'm not like some of you have messaged me like, oh, please don't give up on Nancy and don't stop covering the case constantly. And I'm not going to. I mean, I'm still going to be doing these episodes a lot.
Really?
But I talked to my sources, like, right now just seemed like a good time to kind of just take a little recharge at home. I had some things to need to take care of, obviously.
Okay, Brian, let's get to the point.
It just felt like a good time to kind of recharge. And I'm going to obviously be going back to Arizona and staying on top of the case. And there's also some other cases and stories that I kind of put on the back burner that need my attention too. Some that you have also been following. So I'll be getting back to those too. But don't worry, like, I'm not giving up on the Nancy Guthrie case. And I don't think it's going cold, by the way. Some of you have asked me that. I think it's taking some time, but I think there's going to be movement overall.
Weird.
But in this episode, a really interesting interview. This is a neighbor who I haven't interviewed before. Her name is Laura. She had some really interesting new information that I hadn't heard before. One is she started telling me about a new date that FBI agents are asking about and Pima County Sheriff's detectives. Remember, and you're going to hear her full interview in a second, but remember, we knew about January 11th. We knew that they were keying in on January 11th and that they were asking neighbors for video from January 11th if they had seen anything suspicious on January 11th. So we knew that. But she told me that the detectives have also been asking her about January 24th, which is the first I've heard of this. January 24th would have been the Saturday before Nancy went missing. So 8 days before Nancy went missing. And again, you're going to hear her explain this, but she said specifically they were looking for video from that day. They actually helped her go through her cameras to see if she had anything suspicious on them from January 24th. It's interesting that that's on a weekend and that January 11th is also on a weekend. It's just kind of stood out to me. I don't know if they think that this suspect may have been someone who worked during the week that would come and case the neighborhood on the weekends. That I don't know, but I know that they have been interested in January 24th, which is new, and that they were also interested in January 11th. And again, you're going to hear her explain that in a second. The other interesting thing she brought up to me, which hasn't been discussed much, is that Nancy Guthrie had a security gate on her front door. If you look at this, you can see it. There's like a gate, and many of you guys probably have these. They're pretty common, but there was a gate on the front door with a lock.
Oh,
and then you can see her, her normal door is behind it, but there's a security gate in the front. And Laura brought up an interesting point to me, and she just knows the neighborhood. She has a security gate. She said, when those are locked, they're really, really difficult to get through. So she does not believe that the suspect who we saw on video was trying to get into Nancy's house through the front door, because she says if that security gate was locked, it wouldn't have worked out. It would have been very, very difficult. She believes that there may have been someone inside the house already that was about to take Nancy out, like an accomplice, and that he's at the front door waiting for them to open the door, waiting for that person to open the door so that he can assist in bringing Nancy out the front door, but that they didn't gain entry through the front door because of that security gate, she believes, which when you think about it, does make sense, because those security gates, if it was locked, would be difficult to get through. And I hadn't thought about that series of events and that possibility, and the way she described it makes sense. And you'll hear her, again, explain that in detail in this interview. And one last thing, remember the pictures that we have from the front of the suspect, one of them we know is from around when Nancy went missing. And the other one, I am told, despite the sheriff sort of pushing back on this, but I have a good source on it, that they believe it's from a previous day. Whether that day is January 11th.
I spent hours trying to find that police scanner, thinking it was Annie's house. I'm so bad at listening to police scanners and hearing the real names. It was hilarious how long it took me to find it.
Something else, many of you have been sending me pictures of the billboards that you're seeing now, the Find Nancy Guthrie billboards. Remember in the beginning, there hasn't been a press conference in so long, but when the FBI were part of that initial press conference, they said that there were going to be billboards like this. We weren't sure exactly where they were going to go. I know that there are some, just because you've messaged me, in the Houston area, outside
Florida.
Houston. I know that there's California, these electronic billboards. So it is kind of interesting that they're not focused on just Arizona, but they seem to be popping up kind of all over the region and in other states. And I know that some of them were up this weekend because you guys saw them. So I want to get to my interview with Laura, because, again, there's a lot that she talked about that I hadn't heard before. Also a really, really nice lady. It was nice meeting all these people in the neighborhood who I'm still in touch with constantly. So I wanted you guys to hear my conversation with Laura. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's now, been more than 40 days. Where's your mind at right now?
Okay, let's see what else I can find here.
I think I've appreciated having a little bit of a break the last week or two, where it's Nancy's disappearance isn't in the media all the time, in part because it gives me a break, because I've been contacted a lot. And it lets me kind of get on with my life and things that I've kind of put on hold for a while. But just like how I felt after the death of my parents, distance and time from the event gives you a little bit of calm and peace, but it also, you realize it's already been a month, and I can't believe they've been gone for a month already. So it kind of both sides, feeling a bit of sorrow, along with feeling like personally it's given me a little more space with my neighbors and to kind of carry on with my life, but also in complete disbelief that we don't know where she is. And that is troubling to me. I understand it, though, and I'm not faulting anybody, but does feel extra troubling. And I think about Nancy's daughters and son, and son-in-law and grandchildren, how do they get on with their lives, and how do they get on and with this, knowing that their grandmother and mother are still missing?
Yeah, the sheriff said, he was asked, do you think this person can strike again? And he said, absolutely, which is not something I've heard him say before. But then he went on to say, but we believe it was targeted, but we don't really know. Are you nervous? Are people nervous?
I saw that quote today, and I saw that he was just really talking with the NBC reporters. And I think it's a little bit ambiguous. I think it's targeted, but we're not sure. I'm just not quite sure what that means. But it did cause, my hair to raise up a bit when he said that. And it did give me, some time to think about what that means. And it made me a little bit uncomfortable being, a nearby neighbor. Really? I was thinking about that today on my way home from my appointment. Like, okay, what does that mean? And does that mean there could be somebody else lurking around?
How's it going?
Somebody that's just looking for easy targets. He said it was targeted, but targeted based on what? What's the target? Was it, I don't want to go through and give anybody ideas, but what was the target? Is it a ransom?
Yeah. Was
it an easy, vulnerable person? Somebody living alone? Somebody elderly? What's the target? So, and that's what kind of went through my mind today. What is the target exactly that they're talking about? It has to be one of the above. Somebody that, had some wealth, somebody who's vulnerable. Okay, 1, somebody's vulnerable. 2, somebody who lives alone. 3, someone with an easy to access home. 4, you can go through 4 or 5 possible reasons she was targeted, including, having a famous daughter of some wealth.
Yeah. All right, guys, I want to introduce you to the sponsor of today's episode, Surfshark. Have you ever tried to watch a video, but it says that you can't watch it because of the country that you are in? Well, Surfshark will see Mag's list of the best.
That was my
talking
sense.
about VPNs.
Just from the start, I didn't really consider any other possibilities. In part because I knew I knew she lived there. I knew who her daughter was. When I would walk by, I would always, I always noticed her house and whether she was there or not, and, outside. And I always thought that was a potential, for me, the strongest possibility that maybe it was a crime of opportunity versus looking a little deeper at, other people in Tucson. This might just be someone that you became aware of that had a famous daughter. So that was always the reason I think somebody targeted, but who knows? I don't know the answer to that. And I don't like to speculate. And I always also assumed it was 2 people because of the person who was at the front door, and he was standing there. And I don't think he was the main person. I think he was the guy outside who was waiting for them to come out. Because if you have a gate like that, a security gate
in
the front door, you're not getting
breacher.
You're never going to break into
breacher. You need a tier 1 breacher.
I actually talked to a security guy about 2 or 3 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and he.
So yeah, of course not. And both pieces of glass were intact. You would need a breacher with like the SEALs or Army Rangers use to blow the door back, like when they stormed Bin Laden's compound. Or you need one of those SWAT teams where you hook the chains and rip the doors right off. But again, that would be so loud, it'd be crazy. Anyways, I'll shut my mouth.
And I think he was trying to see in. So when he was standing there, he wasn't trying to figure out what to do. He was trying to look in to see what was going on. And also, because you have a security gate, the door, the wooden door, if that's open, it's hard to see inside if it's dark, because I have one of those. You can't really see if the door is open or not. So I think he was standing there waiting for someone to come out. And so I've always absolutely assumed.
Yeah, we do Google Trends on here. We got millions of
there were
them.
at least 2 people. possibly 3.
You showed it actually.
You know, being someone who has had to help my elderly mother at the time, who was only 120 pounds, try to get her up 3 or 4 stairs. It's hard. It's hard when someone is not wanting to be moved
Big time
or
noise.
is not able to move. So the thought that one person could move, you know, a 140, 150 pound woman who's maybe not wanting to move is not, for me, reasonable to think that it would just be one person.
Like one person could do that, yeah.
Yeah, no. Having tried to live
You
my
could with
parents,
pressure
right?
points and twisting
Yeah, I think
arms.
that's one reason you talk about your parents. I
using
think
different
that's one
pressure points. You
reason
can
so
move
many
someone
people
very
are so
easily.
invested in this story.
Yeah.
Because they think about their own parents.
Yeah.
And you're always worried about your parents when they get old and people taking advantage. And you hear about all the scams today. You know what I mean? I think this resonates with people for that reason.
I think it does, and I think people. I am sure it's caused people to look at their own parents' living situation. I mean, my dad used to live right there in this. You can see, in that building attached to my house, and
one thing I just want to say with moving people with pressure points, like with the military, there's about 100 different pressure points that you could use on someone to make someone, even Andre the Giant, move forward really quickly because it's so painful. So it's not necessarily just about grunt force.
reasons for his own safety. And so you think about your parents all the time. And I'm sure you don't want hindsight to be 20/20, but unfortunately, that's when you start looking at things like many of us have. We started examining our own homes and situations and what else are we secure? Is there something more we can do? Can I have a brighter camera? Do I need more cameras?
So are you going to make changes for yourself, you think?
Yeah, without disclosing.
Yeah, I understand. But it's actually making you do things.
Yeah.
I guess I would too.
Yeah.
You're so close to Nancy's house. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, most people, I think, are kind of reconsidering their own situations and looking for vulnerabilities. In fact, I know the sheriff's department, I think they have a corps, like a volunteer corps, that will do security inspections for your home and look for vulnerabilities. And so I became aware of that, and I've been sharing that information with people who I happen to talk to.
Has the FBI or detectives, have they come here at all?
Yeah. I think the sheriff's deputies were here twice. FBI was here probably 3 times, including last Friday. They, of course, you get a knock at the front door. I'm like, And I can see, I've got the big window there. I can see who's there, and I made him flash his badge before I opened the door, which I wouldn't have done before, to be honest. And so they came. They had more dates.
They went out the front door, I think. I don't think they went from the front inside the door.
Specific dates?
My opinion.
Do you mind saying what dates those were? I mean, I know January 11th has been a big one with the other name. Did that one come up?
Yeah, we went back through, and I don't know if there was more to why they asked, because I've already gone through my cameras, and really there was nothing on there but wildlife. And the other date was the 24th.
The 24th of January, they were interested in. Mm-hmm. Do your cameras face like all over the sides of the house, or what?
I'd rather not say exactly where they face.
Yeah, I understand.
But the one that did record a series around that date were just picking up animals.
Okay. But they had specific dates they were interested in.
Yeah.
Did they seem anything else they asked you that sort of stood out?
No, I think they just wanted to. Maybe it was a different group of people. I'm not sure. I mean, it wasn't the same guys who came, but they just basically asked the same questions that I'd been asked before. We spent about maybe 25 minutes together, and that was it. We went through. I think in some part they want to make sure that people understand how to look through their cameras, and they're looking. And of course I do.
Yeah.
It's just I don't really have anything to show them, unfortunately. There's nothing on there. But I think in part they wanted to make sure that people, were accurately looking through the footage.
Yeah.
And I think in some cases I do know of some people that just turned over their footage and said, you can here's all these dates. Please take a look. Mine aren't really worth doing that because there's not much on there.
Has there been anything that stood out to you since you lived here for more than a decade? Like anything strange that's ever happened? Or any, well, I'll ask you that first,
yeah, one time I had some friends who were here. I was out, they were staying here, and they told me, hey, just let you know, there were some people that walked up to the front of your house and they were taking a bunch of pictures of your house from the front. And I was just, you know, I didn't hire anybody to do any work, and I didn't give any permission to take pictures of the front of my house. And if you can see, you can't see the front of my house from the street.
Right.
You have to walk up my driveway. And so that was alarming. And I thought about that the other day, but this was 3 or 4 years ago. I'm just going to assume that they liked the look of my house.
Yeah, well, you do have a very nice house. So.
I just want to assume that maybe they liked the way it looked, but that was a little, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because I'd never seen that before.
Well, and like you said, your house is like you really have to come up to it.
Yeah.
It's not anywhere near the road. One thing I've heard a lot from neighbors is, and even from some of my sources, is like there's a thought that one possibility is the person who did this could be close by, just because, you know, they haven't been able to track the cell phone from what we know from outside. You know what I mean? Like,
That's weird to me. I don't. And they did actually check. Actually, one more question that they did ask me last Friday is whether my internet went down that night.
Ooh.
And I said if it did, I was asleep, and it probably came up the next day. And plus, I have new internet service from that time to 2 weeks ago. I had to change internet service. So, but I looked back on my Xfinity account to see if it cut out, but I didn't find anything.
okay.
So,
Hold on.
yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, it's entirely possible, but I kind of know who's in these, and they're all like me, you know, they're all meaning, you know, they're all kind of normal people.
Yeah.
I did, you know, notify the, like day 1 or 2 or 3, notified I got a call with, I think it was a special agent, I think it was FBI, that there was a recent turnover, and there's not that many rentals around here, but there was a rental nearby, and whoever lived there had moved out within a few days of this happening. They had moved out a few days before because the cars were gone. So I just became, you know, see something, say something. So I thought it's probably nothing, but I'm just gonna,
Right.
I'm gonna call. I'm going to talk to them and just let them know that there was somebody living there and they're not there anymore. And so I confirmed with a couple of the neighbors, did in fact you see those cars aren't there? He said, yeah, they just moved out.
Yeah.
And these neighbors that I spoke with didn't have any footage of it because it stops at their driveway.
Well, that's the thing people don't get is the footage here, people's houses are set back.
Yeah.
It's not like footage from the front door is going to get people out on the street or, you know.
Well, and I think in neighborhoods where it's just a regular neighborhood, houses are closer together and they're not set back behind, you know, greenery, trees, shrubs. It wouldn't be that out of ordinary to catch cars passing by. I know in California, my house did. You know, every time I got in my car in the driveway, my neighbor's lights would go on from across the street.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, but I realized it's probably a good thing. You know,
right.
That anytime there's motion in my driveway, his cameras pick up my every movement. So so this is just not the kind of neighborhood where there are those kind of people. I pretty much know in all those houses, I know who lives in all those houses around the corner. I'm not going to stay the street, but around the corner. Yeah. I know her next door neighbor. I know the people up the cul-de-sac. I know who everybody is. So it's, you know, they're kind of all.
What's the mood among the neighbors? I mean, you seem pretty calm.
It varies. I mean, I'm always pretty calm, you know, because it's, you know, the wheels just start spinning, and I want to go and find out what's going on. I'm not the person who goes and tries to pretend like it's not happening, or I want to know what's going on. And I went out and talked to neighbors. I checked on some of my older neighbors to make sure they were okay. within days of that happening, because I hadn't seen my one neighbor walking his dog, and I kept going to his house to see if he was there. So that's, I kind of, you see there's quite a few older folks in the neighborhood, and I like to consider I'm not one of the oldest in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like I have the bandwidth to go and check on a couple of neighbors and like the people right across her on the cul-de-sac, So I think people have different, there are people who don't want to talk to, they try to stay as far away from this as possible. They know what's going on, but they don't want to obviously talk to reporters. And I understand that for sure. They don't want
They'll
to,
be right back.
but everybody's still, I talked to some neighbors a couple days ago, and everybody's still, pretty broken up about it.
Yeah, most of the neighbors.
Some people are still pretty traumatized.
I think so.
The ones who are more of her peers have known her for a long time.
And most of the neighbors have been like, "Oh, we're happy it's still on the news.
Yeah.
You guys should stick around. Like, we want them to find Nancy." There's been a few who have said, "Get out of here. It's time. You're vultures." It's been kind of a mix. But most people, I think, want it to stay kind of top of mind in some ways.
Yeah, I probably would put myself in that group because, and it's helpful to the Guthries. The more it stays in the news, top of mind, the more people, the chips are probably slowing down, right? And the more it stays in the news, the more people say, "Oh, that's right. What is it? Whatever happened with that case?" So it keeps it top of mind, and I'm sure that it's helpful to law enforcement to keep it out there versus people forgetting about it. I think for me personally, I don't mind it, but then again, I don't live right next door.
Right. Yeah. I won't say where you are, but you're close.
I'm close.
Yeah.
Backyards.
Yeah.
But I know that there was somebody poking around in my neighbor's backyard at 3 a.m. last week. And he wasn't like one of you kind of media guys. He's a new media guy, like a YouTube media guy.
In the night, you said?
YouTube guy. 3 a.m. She happened to be out with her dogs, letting her dogs out. She's like, "Who are you? What are you doing?"
On her property?
Wall. Well, her property, the neighbor's property comes up to her wall, and they were on the other side. So it was technically her neighbor, but she was out in her yard. It'd like be seeing somebody on the other side of my wall there. And she went and talked to him. It's like, you can't be there. You're trespassing on somebody's property. And people have guns around here.
Yeah.
Some people have guns, and some people are more than happy to,
Also in the middle of the night like that.
3 a.m. And he came up and talked to her, but that's still not okay.
That's really scary.
Yeah. So I think people see all this open space, and I think I'm going to find her. I'm going to claim that money, and I want to be the one to find her. And so I'm going to step over there because there's no houses and there's all this open land, but it's actually somebody's property. You can see back here, there's 2 or 3 acres back here, and it belongs to someone, right? So that's the sort of thing people don't like.
Yeah, that's understandable.
People to step over the line.
Yeah.
And for the most part, media, people like yourself, understand. You have to. To get information, you have to be able to be assertive. You have to be able to go up to people, and you have to, and that's for the most part, people understand that, and they'll say yes or no, I don't want to talk, or I do want to talk. But it's these other people that aren't media trained. They don't know what the rules are, the laws are, that, I think for some people has been a nuisance.
Have you had any frustrations with law enforcement? We've heard so much about the sheriff since we got here.
No, my first thought was hearing him talk. It was a little cringeworthy, because I thought, oh man, that was not probably the best thing to say. But I can't say that he's not doing his job, because I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Maybe he's not as well media trained. I don't know. But so I can't criticize what he's doing, because I don't know what's happening. And that's okay. We should not know everything that's happening. It's really, if it in any way impacts the investigation, if it negatively, impacts investigation, or it's giving too much information. Just because people want to know doesn't mean they should. So I'm not going to, I don't know which way. I don't know if he's doing a good job or a bad job. I just know that it's not necessarily my business. And if I don't like it, then there's the next election,
Right.
But I think it's just he caught off guard with the media. And I understand that there was some things going on there too with his personal life. So.
Anything else that you think is important?
No, other
Anything
than
that
that
hasn't been reported or that people, should know?
No, I just hope that people keep thinking about this case. I hope that people will continue to keep especially people in Southern Arizona, keep their eyes open. I can tell you, every time I go out in public, I am looking. It's like I've got Google glasses on, and I'm putting my little AI on faces to see because I feel like I know what this person looks like. As soon as we saw the image, I said, "This is how tall he is. This is how much he weighs. He's got bow legs. He's got lady hips." I know exactly what I'm. I was like, okay, I know who this person. I don't know him, but I know what this person looks like, and I think a lot of people kind of figured out. Some people thought it was a woman. I don't think so, and so keep your eyes open, and probably nothing that the sheriff hasn't already said to people. But I personally am always kind of scanning when I go out. To be honest, at some point it will probably stop. I'll start forgetting, but for now,
probably smart to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and anybody walking up my driveway is gonna, I'll probably put up signs, no trespassing signs.
Yeah.
Myself, so that I don't have to get into a situation where, it's a terrible thing. Is at one point in our history over 30 years, it'd be fine for somebody to come to your front door. And they still do here, believe it or not. I have people coming trying to sell me things to my front door.
Well, I was kind of nervous coming to your front door just because it's a walk up, and I'm like, gosh, I feel like people are on edge here. So for a guy to walk up, I'm just like,
Oh, I knew who you were though. But no, it's, my dogs always tell me when somebody's coming up the driveway.
Yeah.
So
well, you have big dogs too. So
yeah. And I knew, I recognized you. But you can see in my house, and I can see who's coming up the driveway from over that corner and that corner. So I'm not overly worried, but I am probably a little bit more aware, because the person coming to your house, it says they're trying to sell you their truckload of asphalt, or they see that I could use yard service, or I could use a new roof. Maybe that's not really what they're selling.
Yeah.
Maybe they just want to come up to the door and see who's here.
A lot of people have brought up like contractors. I guess that's a thing here, where there's just kind of, I hate to say shady contractors, but some people have told me that, like, there's people coming around, oh, let me clean your windows, let me look at your roof,
Well, there's a lot you can see. You've probably heard some of it going on. Just right near her house, there was a new roof. Somebody got a new roof the last 2 days in the cul-de-sac over there. He moved. He's moving. He moved to San Diego. He was planning on it already. So there were people there, and I was watching, because I could see from my back of my house who was up there. Over there is construction. There's always construction. Somebody's doing something to their house. They're doing an addition or doing a new roof or something, remodeling. And so there's people around. And so I had said that previously to someone, that at any given point, there are a lot of vehicles around. Most of the time you see who.
Quick question for Joe Neal. Yeah, I front my company's money. We paid $4,000 to go out in Tucson. We paid somebody to sit out there and not get any information, paid for a hotel, paid for food, and fronted $4,000. So let me put that back on you, Joel Neal. What do you do? You just on here to be a little crab? Because I did 3 hours live on Delphi. I was on Delphi and Evansdale. He's out. We're not going to listen to dorks like that. I'm sorry. Let's me on mute. Sorry.
Like sweat more here. I think just because of the humidity, obviously. But thank you guys again for following along with me. I'll keep you guys posted on any updates that come with the case. Trying to think if there's anything else that I left out that I learned over the last 24 hours.
Does
There's
anybody
a few little
have
nuggets
any
I'm working
other,
on. I just need to get some second sources
any
on.
other
So
thoughts
I'll
on
keep
the
you posted
Kia?
if any of those play out.
Yeah, let's remove. Does anybody have any thoughts on the Kia? Is the Kia worthless at this point? What do you guys think? Just I'm just curious on what you guys are thinking. We also have a Banfield clip. I'm not sure because I don't do any work. I'm not sure if someone wants to see a few clips on Ashley Banfield, or we can go through. Let me see if they took down the map that we had up. 1 second of Nancy. Let's see if the OSMs are still up. Let's see. Street roads. Cell towers are up. We have, the traffic cameras are still, let's see if they brought some back. They have, so the trailheads, we have the mines that are over here. This whole area is mines, and they got a cell phone tower. But let's see if they got rid of the cameras. One second. Cameras, yeah, it's still flashing. That means they I can't see the camera data anymore. Like these are some of the cameras, the live snapshot of the different areas, and then these are the better probability routes where he could go. But cell phone coverage wasn't the best. What is this? 58. This is somebody updating. What is 5830 North Jamita's Drive? I wonder if that's so a little bit ago the FBI actually went through here, or law enforcement, and they removed some of the cameras. Can somebody look that address up for me? Okay, the Kia is still on the table. And I mean, again, according to that one guy, I don't do anything, but I was on Google Earth and I showed I found a Kia at El Charo. It's probably nothing. Again, I do run a company all day long, so I try my best to provide content when I can. I go to like Delphi. I try to go to Evansdale. I've been all over West Allis and Baseline Killer, Mercedes Vega, which was the escort worker that got murdered in Tempe, Arizona. I covered that case. I was out there. So that Joe O'Neill guy. Okay, I think the FBI ruled out the Kia. Okay, what can somebody Google this address? Can you see this address? Because so somebody took over this. This was okay, wait here, fine. I'm just gonna look it up since Joe O'Neill says I don't do any work. I sit here and I'm on unemployment. I collect no money and I sit on YouTube. Let's see. I'm going to Google this house address. Yep. There was Delphi. Yep. So this. Yep. There's Delphi. We did a 3-hour show last night, and we're going to be doing Delphi tonight at 9. Hopefully Monday could come on. Here. The address is this. It's 5830 North G. Here, wait. Let me zoom in. I can't see. This just appeared out of nowhere. I don't know what this is about. 5830 North Genemas Drive. Let me see if I can try to copy that. I don't know why that's on there. That's the first time it's on there. Or do you remember when I said yesterday how they took a lot of the cameras off and now they put some cameras back on? But that was never on there before. And I'll show you. One second. I'll actually show you the file from the. Where is it? So this was the file that I went over because I don't do any work. So I was just showing all the Google Trends, all the searches. But here is the older. So this is what the older map looked like. Okay. And if you notice that other address, so the FBI pulled all the wait, I don't even know if you can see this. One second. Yeah, the FBI pulled all these cameras last night on this interactive map. They pulled all the OSM cameras that went from 234 to 0. And now out of the blue, okay, so that's Nancy's address right there. Out of the blue, this was weirdly updated right here. Thank you, Ali, baby girl. Yeah, sorry, I shoveled like 40 inches of snow, so I didn't mean to be crabby to that one guy. My snow blower broke. Then my neighbor next door to me, he has cancer, so I had to snow blow his gigantic driveway, and he was on his own Nest camera while watching me and calling me and telling me to not run over his grass. And meanwhile, it's like blizzard blowing in my face. I'm trying my hardest to I know he's very meticulous about his driveway, but here he's at the hospital and I'm like just trying to help him out. And he's calling me every 5 seconds while it's like -19 out. And I'm picking up and he's like, yeah, just make sure you don't hit that. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I'm just doing you a favor shoveling. I don't know. Wait. I'm going to look up that house on Google. Let's go to Google. There is no reason why that. I mean, I don't want to frame somebody that's innocent or something, but that is the weirdest thing for that to be up there. I have no clue. It's like they're tampering with this map, and this is like the interactive map. So, Jamatis Drive. Why is that on there? One second. I mean, it could be nothing. So, and we don't want to get anybody in trouble. Yep, no problem. Okay, wait. Let me look up Jamatis Drive, 5380 North Jamatis Drive, and then we can see who's the person. Is it north? Yeah, that looked north, right? What the heck is this? Let's see. And I'm not trying to crucify an innocent person either, so let's just be careful here. What is this? Looks like a pretty big house. Is this like a... Let's see a 3D view of this. I'm sorry, just too weird. I've been looking at this map forever. And why would that just appear? Let me just look around for a second. Sorry, I don't want to get you guys nauseous. What is it, just like a big family's house or something? Weird. I'm going to Google the name of the people, but I won't obviously share it. Let me just see real quick. So that's a van. What is this? Like an industrial? Huh. North Jamatis Drive, is it? Okay. Yeah, I will. That's a good point, Gen X. Hey, good evening, Alma. Yeah, I'll look this up on my own. It is weird that this just popped up out of the blue. One second. Can't see it. Okay, show me. Show the house. Well, there's a few people that say don't show the house. I can let me. Gen X has a good point. I don't want to send anybody there. Okay, sounds good. You know what? I'll hold this one back. Let me do a little digging on my end on this, and then wait to see what pops up. You made a good point. So I'm sorry I didn't think of that. Okay. And while I have you guys in here, let me just I'm not gonna say the address or the individual. I'm just gonna Google the address just real quick. Just for my own thing, and then maybe we can see if there's any data on it down the road. It's so weird because that, and I know I keep saying it, but this has never showed anything. They removed all the cameras yesterday. It's like, who's removing the cameras? And then it's like stuff pops up on there. It's really weird. Okay. Weird. Okay. Wonder who this is. Okay, so we'll stop it there. Would you guys like to see anything on a quick clip on yeah, please send me any pictures at tedinvestigates@gmail.com. I'm going to be on at 9 p.m. Central Time. Is that weird, that name? Do you guys want to see, and again, I'm not just trying to share other people's clips, but Ashley Banfield had like top 10. There's a real quick thing on her non-news nation on her personal thing, said 10 major mistakes that could haunt the Nancy Guthrie, or watch it yourself. It's totally up to you guys. I don't know if you wanted to watch that. Yeah, you do? Okay. As long as it's not News Nation. Okay. I definitely did find something interesting. I have to look up this person's name. This is bizarre stuff, but I don't know if it's related or not, but you're right. I'm going to take this screen off. We won't show that. I actually had no clue. This map usually only shows Nancy's house, but now it seems like someone's doing work on it that I have no clue why. But yeah, the last thing I want to do is screw over an innocent person. That would be, I would hate if someone did that to me.
By the way, subscribe. It really helps. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you are not new, do it. And thank you to our members. I really appreciate you guys. So I have been thinking a lot over the weeks and weeks that we've been covering the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie about all the things that just didn't quite go right. And, you know, who am I to talk? I'm not law enforcement, but I can tell you this. I've been around the block when it comes to crime and justice. I have been a crime reporter for decades. And so I've seen a few things, and I've seen the way investigations go, and I've seen when they screw them up. So I put together a list of all the things that happened in the last, half dozen plus weeks where I just kind of shake my head. And I know I'm not the only one.
Okay, I'll see you later this evening, Gen X.
The grizzled homicide detectives who've been at this a long time also saying, what the actual F is going on in Arizona? So let me just sort of go through a couple of these, because in a moment, I'm going to talk to one of the more seasoned homicide expert and a guy who actually
Who's
runs the Cold Case Foundation,
Annie's car
still
right there?
doing it for a living, so
For
to speak,
Nancy, I'm calling her
solves
Annie.
crimes, solves the puzzles, applies the techniques and the evidence, and follows the evidence to where it leads you. These are, kind of like Crime 101. And I can say that in this particular case of Nancy Guthrie, there are a lot of things that just, even to the untrained eye, you say like, what the? That ain't the way it's supposed to go. It doesn't happen that way on CSI and on TV, and it doesn't happen that way in reality either. Let me start with this.
Thank you.
When the investigators came to process the scene,
streams too.
They missed a critical piece of evidence, at least one. The camera that was above the casita, the pool house, it was there. It was never collected by the initial homicide detectives. They released the scene, in like less than 48 hours, it seems, and that camera was still there. And eventually they took it.
All right, I got to rep my the Bears.
Number two,
the Bears.
They sure released that house pretty quickly, right? Again, crimes committed on February 1st, it's a Sunday. House is released on February 2nd, that's a Monday. That is real quick. And by the way, that's not me saying that. That's Sheriff Chris Nanos. Take a listen.
Monday morning quarterback, I probably would have, but I'll say this. We processed the scene. We got what we thought was complete. My team did that. I have to have all the faith and trust in their abilities and their skills, and I think they went through that pretty well. But because another agency now steps in and wants to assist, we're just like with you. We're an open
fan too.
Absolutely. How can we help? One of the things people don't see, I heard your question about, and we left and then others could walk up. When we process a scene and we're done, we return that scene to in this case, the homeowners, the family. Crosby. And we don't just go march back in there. We call the family again and get permissions to go back
Cubs,
to the
Hawks,
home.
And Bears.
So there's
Wrigley Field's
Monday morning quarterback. Absolutely, there. I probably could have held off on that.
I used to live there when I was younger.
For things that are left behind in an investigation of this magnitude, it was a shock to me that they never took the bracket off the front door where the Nest Cam had been affixed before it was. Well, my source says smashed off the mount, and it was certainly gone. And the sheriff said it's not in their possession, so it is gone. The perpetrator took it, but the Nest Cam mount was still on the wall for days and days and days. I always said that this guy probably put a bite light into his mouth, maybe using those gloved mitts of his, and that would put saliva on his gloves, and he was manhandling that camera and the mount too. So there could be his DNA on that mount. But the mount wasn't taken, not right away anyway. It took, I think, maybe more than a week or two before they finally showed up and took the mount. So there's a bit of a misstep as well. The sheriff said early on that
a woman
Nancy
was
Guthrie
hanging from
was
a
taken
tree
from her
this
bed.
morning on the road.
And then the next day said, I didn't mean for you to take it literally, and made us all retract it and change our reporting. Only to have Savannah Guthrie put out an Instagram where she literally said the words, my mom was taken from her bed in the dark of night.
Yeah,
so to me, that's a big misstep too. Either it did happen and you said it and then you lied the next day, or it didn't happen, but you both said it and then you retracted it. The whole thing seems just kind of nonsensical. And I kind of trust Savannah. She's a broadcaster. She knows words matter. She's also a lawyer. And this has happened to her. I don't think she'd make it up. In any case, it seems like a misstep to me. It was also a total shock to me that on day 2, February 2nd, the sheriff called off the search for Nancy Guthrie.
So we have shut down our search and rescue mission, and we've sent them home to rest. They were out all night. Look, we put all our air assets into this, our drone systems, our aircraft, our helicopters, heat sensors, infrared, everything we've had, we've thrown at this. They're going to step aside. We'll call them out again if we need to do more searching. But right now, we don't see this as a search mission as much as we do a crime scene. Remember, it was a search and rescue mission the first few hours, and we transitioned that over to a criminal investigation.
I remember hearing that and thinking, what the hell is going on? This woman is missing. And yes, you brought the homicide detectives in because something didn't look right in the house, but why on earth would you call off the search this soon? My God, that does not happen. Not in the crimes that I've covered, not in the missing persons cases that I've covered. Search parties are out for weeks. Elizabeth Smart had a whole industry of search parties set up in Salt Lake City for weeks. I was there for 5 weeks, and those search parties were there every single week. I'm recording this in week 6, and we haven't seen a search party. I've barely seen a search party. And shockingly, hearing the sheriff say on day 1, we're calling off the search permanently but if we need to, bring searchers back on a case-by-case basis, we will. My words, but effectively that's what he was saying. I couldn't understand that for the life of me. Day 2. Mistake? Possibly. As for searchers, the Cajun Navy offered their services. Cajun Navy, well-known, Katrina, they brought together a legion of all these civilians who had assets and knowledge and capabilities, and they all went about their business, working as a community. And the Cajun Navy sent a representative to help search for Nancy Guthrie or for evidence or for anything. Free labor, free help, many eyes. And they were rebuffed. They were ghosted. Effectively, the guy who was sent said they just didn't respond. That might be a mistake. Free labor, good labor, smart labor. Labor's been around for 2 decades plus. The mistake I was so astounded by was the sheriff when he was asked a question by a reporter, what can you tell me about this list of names and photographs that agents have gone gun store to gun store asking if maybe these people had been in their store? And Sheriff Nano said, that's a lie. Is it? I mean, unfortunately for the sheriff, the reporters had already been to those stores, had already interviewed the owners/workers of those stores, who had already said, yes, the FBI was here and showed us a list of names and photographs, and we put them in our system. And unfortunately, we couldn't come up with anybody. So that's not a lie. Don't use those terms. They're mean and cruel and wrong. Lie. Is it a mistake, or was it that the sheriff just didn't know about it because the FBI left him out of it? I don't know, but it's a misstep for sure. Also seemed to be unaware that the FBI had gone to Savannah Guthrie's sister's home and brought their ring light and their capabilities and helped the 3 siblings, Savannah and her 2 siblings, record an outgoing message directed to the alleged perpetrator who might be holding Nancy for ransom. Remember those ransom notes in the beginning, the alleged ransom seekers? Yeah, the sheriff didn't know about it. Had to find out about it from his wife, who saw it on the news. That's a misstep as well. Or is it the FBI not bringing the sheriff in because they just didn't want the sheriff to know what they were doing, lest he say something about it that, had to be retracted. Another big shock on day 2, remember, called off the search on day 2, articulated to the community, to the world in the press conference, there's no threat to the community out there. There's no boogeyman out there. You don't have a cause to be concerned. I think the exact words that he used were, no cause for alarm, no concern. Well, 40 some odd days later, he certainly has said there's a lot of cause for concern. This person's still out there. These are my words, but effectively his message, lock your doors. There is a reason to be concerned. Just because it's the Guthries doesn't mean that you're not at risk. Everybody's at risk because this guy's out there. That ain't the same as message number 1. Why on day 2 were you saying there's no cause for concern? How the hell did you know? Or what did you know? Or what information were you going on? Because that's changed 6 weeks later. There were a couple of raids, very high profile raids, lots of firepower, manpower, just, just the weight of the world coming down on these 2 citizens. One in Rio Rico in the first 2 weeks, and then the other one was February 13th. Into February 14th in Nancy Guthrie's neighborhood. Those people were detained and cuffed, and their houses were turned upside down, and their lives were kind of shattered, and that didn't pan out. Were those mistakes? Not necessarily. Look, in cases like this, there are going to be suspects that they're going to investigate. Did they need all that firepower? I've heard 2 different versions from experts I trust. 1, yes, the guy's dangerous and Nancy Guthrie could have been chained up in a basement. You don't know. 2, the other assessment was that's ridiculous. Who needed all those cars, all those agents, all those guns, all that response? You know, the bomb squad. I mean, I've heard it both ways from people in the business of law enforcement. So I'm not sure which way to weigh in on that. But the other thing that is big is the sheriff has made no secret that he loves the Guthrie family, that they're special to Tucson, that Savannah's a special daughter of Tucson, made good with her life. And he made those comments very early in the case. And if you know missing people cases, the vulnerable, it's crime fighting 101 that you have to investigate families first. As unpalatable as it might be, it's just the way law enforcement works. So was it right for him to be saying all these flattering things lovingly about the Guthrie family? Probably not, because they had to be a target. You know, that's just the way he's supposed to do his job. They had to be looked at. But there's been a lot of people who've brought up the topic of favoritism. Has this sheriff favored this family while he was supposed to be investigating this family? Could be looked at as a mistake. But you know what? Time will tell when we finally find out where exactly their heads were at. Maybe some of these questions will be answered. But until then, I had somebody who helps me get through a lot of these things because he's better at this than I am. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you actually went to the doctor? Not Googled your symptoms, not powered through it. Actually went. If you've been putting off a doctor's appointment because it's just too hard to find somebody good who takes your insurance and can see you soon, then
if you get to a house and you canvass that house, i.e. you search it entirely, you're going to start looking for that type of evidence that's going to give you solid evidence, not circumstantial evidence, right? And video is one of those things. So if you're seeing that potentially there's a video system in the house, well, automatically you have to assume that you're going to go through that home, exterior and interior, and look for those cameras. So the fact that they,
like all the gutters, like you would think you would do a complete perimeter search for any security cameras on all buildings in the house, no?
Right. And plus you have family there. So you want to ask the family, where tell me about the security system that your mother has. And they may or may not be aware of it, but at the same time, if they are aware of it, they're going to point you to, oh yes, you got a camera over here, you got a camera over here, there's one on the roof, and you know, you just follow that chain of evidence.
Well, on the subject of cameras, I could not believe that the bracket was left behind on the front doorbell cam, the bracket that held the Nest cam, because if this guy has the bite light, he's got a light in his mouth of some kind. He had to put it in there and he had to take it out. And presumably he did that with his gloved fingers, which would tell me that when he has his mitts all over the camera and he's fussing with the foliage, he's probably touching those fingers to the bracket. And yet the bracket was left there for days until finally, I think the FBI might have shown up, put the big white tent over the front, and an hour or so later, what do you know, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, these are the fundamental 101s, right? I mean, giving some grace to the initial response, right? They didn't know for a fact that they were going to end up with this particular video. And, now we're hearing they may even have more, at least photographs of some sort. But that said, the fact that that camera is missing, to your point exactly, Ashley, I mean, with this idea that,
Chris, on day three, that would be Tuesday after Nancy's Sunday disappearance. On day 3, my source told me their Nest cameras, they were smashed. And what do you know? They're gone. And Michael Ruiz from Fox News said there were glass shards. He saw glass shards underneath where the Nest cam would have been. To me, on day 3, I don't know why they would not have taken the actual bracket from which these cameras were smashed. You would assume they'd have been manhandled at some point.
Yeah, and every piece of that camera is a piece of the evidence. And, if you think about that, there could be touch DNA, there could have been, like you're talking, there could have been, fluids from maybe the suspect's mouth, et cetera. Or he could have even cut himself. I mean, we don't know that yet. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. I mean, whenever you hit glass, even with gloves on, there's a possibility that the suspect could cut himself. And many crimes have been solved like that. And maybe this is some of this mixed DNA problem that we're hearing about, but we don't know about. This would be a perfect example of if in fact there is glass down there and it was witnessed, then they should have collected it. There's no excuse not to.
Interesting you said that, because I hadn't thought of it till now. It is a doorbell camera, which means you touch it. And so all sorts of people would have touched it. And maybe the mix could be from those who have rested their hand on the doorbell camera, or, put their hand over it as a joke or something. Maybe that, who knows if it's from inside the house or if the mix is from the outside, from that doorbell camera. It's something to contemplate. But, even the mat. So the shards of glass, particles of glass, however Fox News worded it, the front half moon doormat was left behind as well. To my knowledge, it's still there. I'm not sure if they ever picked it up.
Yeah, the last I heard as well that it's still sitting on the porch there at the house. And we now saw on that video, the suspect was standing on it with both feet as he walked up to the front door. And so, that in of itself is problematic, because you could get dirt transferred. I'll give you a simple case. 30 seconds. I had a case where it was a body had been dumped out into the brush area, and we gathered the air filter from the suspect vehicle, and we sent it to a botanist, and we then took the foliage from around where the body was discovered. Long story short, we were able to match that foliage up to the particles within inside of that air filter. And so this is a kind of situation where, let's say this guy had dirt from another environment. Okay, that area is very specific to type of geographic area, but at the same time, the soils are different, the environment's different. So you could have cactus from different parts of that particular region. Well, who's to say it? He didn't transfer something from the bottom of his shoe onto that mat. You may not get DNA, but you may get some type of dirt of some sort.
I've covered cases like that, Chris. Honest to God, I've covered cases where in court you learn that mud that's on the tread of the killer's shoes ends up getting transferred to a location where it shouldn't be. And so I've seen it multiple times. Soil that's not supposed to be there is there, and it only comes from this particular area. So I still can't understand why they would have left the mat behind. But once again, that's why we're doing this list of mistakes. The other thing is that the search for Nancy was called off on by Monday. Don't even know what time, but by Monday, which isn't even 48 hours later, they stopped searching for her. Why would they do that?
That is a great question. They first got in there and they handled it like a missing woman, right? That was almost like a walk away, for lack of a better term, is what we would call it. And so it was a check the welfare kind of thing. And
but then
so
they saw blood. Then they saw the blood and called the homicide division, like very, very quickly.
Right. And that's a huge mistake in terms of shutting it down at that moment, because it's at that point you really want to expand your resources. You don't want to, pull them in. And I was surprised they didn't put more cadaver dogs into the area, even with, you can put booties on those dogs, because I can tell you that these dogs missed, certain things at certain times. And sometimes, depends on the wind, right? If the wind's blowing a certain way, a dog may not pick the scent up right away. So I don't know if they've gone back over there to run, cadaver dogs. But here we are, this far down the road, you would think that they should do that.
Day 40 plus, week 7-ish. Depending on when our viewers are watching this. The other thing that the sheriff said very early on was, I believe it might have been day 2, he said to a member of the media that Mrs. Guthrie was taken from her bed in the middle of the night. And that was published, I believe, in the New York Times. I could be wrong there, but it was published. And then the sheriff came out later and was angry about that, saying, well, I didn't think you take me literally. And everybody retracted all this reporting that she was taken from her bed, only to find several weeks later, Savannah Guthrie, using those exact same words when she gave her Instagram account, speaking, "My mother was taken from her bed in the dark of night." And so I just can't for the life of me understand, A, why someone would say it if they didn't want it out there, B, why they would retract it if it's true.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ashley. I mean, the communication here to the public is to be gentle, is alarming, because if in fact she was taken to the bed, from the bed, and that's what he did say, okay, well, then that tells us specifically about the mentality of this perpetrator, and it takes him to a different level. The fact that we may have two photographs, from two separate nights, one with a gun, one without a gun. Is this one or two people? We don't know that piece of the puzzle, but we know one of them has a gun. And so that means this person entered that house with the ability to use deadly force. And it also means there's a 84-year-old woman asleep, probably, high probability, in her own bedroom in that house. Now that tells us a whole bunch of information about the mindset of the suspect and the familiarity of that mindset to that home.
Well, it just made me question. I understand why investigators hold back information. It's not lost on me. We get it. But if you're looking for a kind of perpetrator, certainly the public, more advised on who they're looking for, might be able to think, my friend Jake is kind of like that. They might be more attuned to zero in who it is that the police are looking for if they know there's a certain predilection among their friends. And so it's the kind of information, if you've already sent it out there, Sheriff, why on earth would you retract it if it's true? Because it actually might help spur more tips.
Yeah, there comes a point in investigations where you have to determine whether or not putting information into the public will help the investigation or hurt it. In this particular case, I think at this juncture, look at the type of leads that were generated just by putting the video out there. Okay. And that came through Kash Patel. Remember, he hit it up on in social media. Well, that generated a whole new enthusiasm for the investigation, for lack of a better term.
40,000.
And so,
last count, Chris.
Right. And that's right. That's the point. That's the reason. And so when you have a sheriff who's talking out of both sides of his mouth, one day it's, yeah, I said this. Well, I didn't mean to say that. Well, perhaps I said that. It's a confusing messaging to the public. And the messaging, to the public should be very clear, concise, precise, because there are other senior citizens out there in that area that are on edge. And you have to make sure that if you have information that tells you, look, you're okay, you're going to be okay because we have a direction we're headed. And this is the reason why. You don't have to say all of the reasons, but you also have to lower that fear and that temperature to the community. That's your obligation as a law enforcement.
You're speaking my language. In a minute, I'm going to get to that because Sheriff Nanos said on day 2, there's no concern here. He actually said there's no cause for alarm. There's no concern. But that directly conflicts with what he said this week. I'm getting to that in a moment. But I want to just specifically say the words that Sheriff Nanos used. Back early in the case, these are the words that Sheriff Nanos used. He initially told NBC News, quote, "When you're taken from your bed and you don't want to go somewhere, that's an abduction." But then the Sheriff's Department said that Nanos, quote, "meant that figuratively and did not mean that she was literally taken from her bed." That's what the department then said and clarified to NBC.
Yeah, does it get any clearer than that, right?
Yeah, clear as mud. Clear as mud.
That's right. Exactly. And so it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. What do you know that tells us she didn't want to go? Number one. Okay. You can't tell the public that, oh, by the way, we know she didn't want to go out, leave that house. Okay. Well, how do you know that? Do you have other information inside the house? And if you say that, or if you do, then you need to tell the public. The reason I made that statement is because we have other evidence that we're holding close to the chest that gives us clear and concise information about that being the point. And this is, I think, where maybe this burglary thought process comes up, because early on he said, well, this could have been a burglary gone wrong. Well, anybody who enters a building with the intent to commit a theft or a felony is a burglar, okay, under the law, okay? But if you're 84 years old and you're sound asleep, and there's a guy circling your house, and there's all this other stuff that's been going on, guess what? He's not there to commit a burglary. He's there to commit a major felony, evident of the fact that she's missing out of that house. Okay. And so when you put those pieces of the puzzle together, and then you start telling the public, look, I'm not really sure what we have. It could be a burglary. It could be this, I'm not sure. Well, your job is to be sure. Trust me, I've been doing this, since 1982. And I work some of the highest profile cases in this country. I did the little boy in Southern California that was murdered in the bathroom. And there were 18 satellite trucks when I walked out of that bathroom. I did Leticia Hernandez, who was kidnapped December 16th, 1989, which is the only little girl that's ever been profiled 3 times on America's Most Wanted. I have done a lot of high profile cases. If the miscommunication is screwed up, then parents will worry about where their children were. In this case, you have senior citizens going, am I safe, Sheriff? And he's getting mixed messages out there. He needs to get off of the podium and let his PIO do their job.
Well, and check the facts too. Okay,
Check the
I want
facts.
to go through the list a little bit more. The sheriff released the scene Monday. That was the day after that this happened, and then later admitted, well, maybe I did that too soon, and said the words, I believe that's on me.
Right. Homicide 101. Do we have everything here? Yeah. Okay. Let's triple check to make sure we have everything here. Okay. Done. Now, that means if you are going to search that house and you have a warrant to do it from a judge, okay, then you hold it as long as you need it. If you need more time, you go back to the judge and you put your hand up and say, Your Honor, we're not done. We're still processing. We're still gaining more information as this comes down. The irony of that was when the FBI did finally come in, when he let their evidence team comes in, remember he says, well, they need to do their thing too. What the heck does that mean? They need to put their own, barrier tape up to keep the public out, and now they need to do their own thing. That in of itself was confusing. I'll tell you what.
I'm mindful of that, though, Chris, because I've seen a lot of crimes that they start small and then they're resolved, and there's no need to sort of scale it to the FBI. And on day 2, apparently the FBI was involved. So that's actually a good timeline to hear that they were involved. But then to hear that on day 2 you're releasing the scene, I feel like it shouldn't be released until Mrs. Guthrie's back home. Not we've double and triple checked our evidence to see if we got what we need.
Right. There's what they call rollback warrants, right? Where you can, you all of a sudden discover something that the investigation tells you, okay, either a witness or, video or whatever, okay? The MAT is a good example of that, okay? And so you can go back to the judge or you can go to the family and get consent, and the family can say, oh, yeah, of course, go get that piece of evidence. We want that, okay? The courts look at that and juries look at that and go, oh, well, they didn't see it the first time. That makes sense, okay? But they also, juries are not real friendly when it comes to, hey, we've got the homicide guys here the very first night, okay, or whatever it was. We've got our evidence team here, and guess what? We've released the scene. And then all of a sudden they see, hey, I got to go back 3 or 4 more times to this house because we keep learning more things. And that's when a court will come in and say, well, why don't you just shut the thing down and hold it? Okay. And you have a crime scene log, and you have a person with that crime scene log that dates and times everybody coming in and everybody going out. Okay. Because if that's not done, a defense attorney is going to jump on that, and it's called fruit of the poisonous tree. All of that evidence that they collected, that they did, quote, diligently collect, okay, is going to get suppressed in pretrial hearings. And one thing that shocked me that the sheriff had said, he said, well, we'll let the courts handle that stuff. Remember, he was asked.
Yep. Yeah, I remember
that. Who does that?
Well, he does. How about who does this? Who does this? On, like I said earlier, on day 2, which is Monday following the Sunday abduction, the sheriff says there's no cause for alarm in terms of if there's a concern to the community. He's asked if there's a fear, a boogeyman out there. He says there's no cause for alarm, no concern. And then on week 6, he says, we believe we know why he did this, meaning the suspect. We believe we know why he did this. I think from day 1, we had strong beliefs about what happened, and those beliefs haven't diminished. And then he said, you do need to be concerned out there, lock your doors, etc. What the hell changed? If you believed what you believed from day 1, why are you telling us to lock our doors now? But on day 2, you were saying no cause for alarm, no concern. That's a hell of a mistake if you ask me.
Yeah, it is. And the fact that the sheriff is saying we believe we know why he did it, well, that's a singular. That's not they. We believe why they did this. Okay. And so that tells the public, hey, there is that person out there that they may know who that person is. Okay. And apparently it sounds like they knew who that person was on day 1. Okay. And so then the next question then to the public is, well, what about all this ransom note then? Was that just noise, right? Did they know where she was taken to? Did they have some type of information in there like that? The sheriff needs to clarify what this messaging is, and he can't do it in bits and pieces. I mean, it's almost like he's thinking in bits and pieces. He's not, coherently telling the public, look, here's what's going on, and here's the reason why. And quite frankly, he should not be the mouthpiece for this investigation. It needs to go back to a lower, like a sergeant or a lieutenant who is working with the task force. Somebody from the task force should be the mouthpiece to the media and to the public. The sheriff needs to sit in his office, get debriefed on a daily basis about what's going on, and it's the task force commander who says, okay, Chuck, you're the public information officer. Here's what we want to tell the public today. This is the progress we're making. You hold that daily briefing, 10 a.m. for professionals like yourself and others. You get everybody in the same room at the same time, asking the same questions, and they all get the same answer. Okay, but not this guy.
This episode is sponsored by Raycon. And with spring finally here, I've been trying to get outside a lot more, walks, errands, just getting some fresh air. And it's confounding to hear him say, we believe we know why he did this. I think from day 1, we had strong beliefs about what happened, and those beliefs haven't diminished. And so day 2, there's no cause for alarm in the community. Day 40, or day 30, day 41, I think he's putting, or day 40, he's putting out, there is a cause for concern, lock your doors. This is a danger to the community. And like you said, there's an entire alleged ransom piece to all of this that the FBI is working, right? They're going into Savannah Guthrie's home and helping to record these messages to the so-called alleged ransom seekers. And the sheriff didn't know anything about it. He learned about it from his wife. I mean, to me, this is a colossal sort of failing, not knowing that something this big was happening, just down the street.
Well, it's a perfect example of your ego goes to the door before your experience. You can be, you can say you've had 40 something years or 50 years, but there's nothing that can replace experience. And, I have a lot of experience, but I've made mistakes like the next person. But at the same time, I let the people that are in the lane run and do their job. And administrators, the sheriff is an administrator. His job is to protect the community and to run the department. It's not to run investigations. That is the homicide team.
Chris, is it a mistake of the FBI to not inform the sheriff that they were going in and recording for the very first time an outgoing message from the family to these alleged ransom seekers? Is that a mistake of the FBI, or do you think it's the FBI specifically holding it back because they're worried about what the sheriff was going to say?
Well, I think it could be twofold, right? Behind the scenes, there's political jockeying going on, as well as in front. You've got the field agents and you've got the sheriffs who are working side by side, and quite frankly, they're probably doing an amazing job. Those guys, it's always the people behind you that are lockstep into who's going to get to the podium first. Okay, I mean, just look at how some of the information got released. You have the director of the FBI send in a text message out, okay, or a tweet out on Twitter about the video and the photographs, okay? And now you have the sheriff coming over and going, hey, well, we didn't know about that. We didn't know about the ransom letters and that the family was going to read that stuff. So it was almost like a tennis match, right? Okay, well, you're going to do that? Fine, we'll do this. And finally they realized that the public wasn't going to stand for it. And I think the pushback from the public was, you guys need to get on board here together and leave this other stuff to the side, because there's an 84-year-old woman out there who's been missing, and you need to, put your aspirations off to the side in terms of politically. This is a really interesting phenomenon happening where politicians are stepping up to the podium to run investigations. Okay, their job is not to run investigations. In fact, in my opinion, anytime you see a politician step up to the podium, it's a problem. Okay, it's a problem. And because that's telling you they're also behind the scenes trying to tell the investigators what to do and how to do it. Okay, and I'll tell you, that's a recipe for disaster. It really is.
To that end, the sheriff in this case really from day one spoke so highly of the Guthrie family. And for anybody out there who's, doesn't work in investigations, it sounds nice, right? Oh, this poor family's been victimized. And he's saying how, she's almost like Tucson's first daughter. Savannah's so special to our community. Nancy's special to our community. All of that sounds nice, but isn't it their job to kind of be the bad guy in an investigation? As unpleasant as it is, the statistics usually point to families, and you've got to investigate from the very middle outward in the concentric circles. So should he be making those kinds of overtures to a family that he's bound by law to investigate?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. And there is no favoritism when it comes to potential homicide. Our job as investigators, and I work for the Cold Case Foundation, is to follow the evidence. Wherever the evidence takes you, there is no, there's no favoritism in that evidence. Okay, and so if the evidence took them to a car, and then that car took them to a house, and that house took them to their phones, which in this case you have all of that taking place, and then maybe other evidence took them back to the house, to the garage, at 10 o'clock at night and photographed it. Okay, well then tell the public why. Why did you do that? Because that in of itself is not doing the family any favors in any way, shape, or form, because it was all done, in the evening, most of it, except for when the ICAC guys showed up with the UFED to go into the home. Why are they ringing the doorbells of all the neighbors of the family members, to ask them about the family members. That is homicide 101.
But also photographing inside their home in the dark of night. I think
Right.
that's something that led a lot of people to say, what's going on here? These are supposedly the victims. The sheriff has spoken so lovingly of this family. Then why are you over there, intruding on their home? Is it a mistake?
Why are they coming out of the house with bags?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above. And I don't want to suggest for a moment.
No, I get it.
People have wrongly accused me of
I get it.
floating theories. And what I have done is I have only reported what my sources have said, and that was that they are looking at a family member. And so I'm just so curious about why the sheriff would speak so lovingly of a family that he's clearly investigating. So publicly, he's saying to us, these people could be victims and ease up, and it's reckless to say these things. But yet he's photographing their home. He's towed the car. He's asking neighbors. He's searching around their homes, taking video from gas stations nearby. Again, I don't know if it's a mistake or if it's just somebody who's just not ready for prime time. I'm not sure.
Well, you have to ask yourself, right? We have to step back and you're right. We're not accusing anybody. We're just watching what the sheriff is doing. I mean, let's just be clear with the public, right? We're seeing the same things that, quite frankly, the family's seeing, because the family's going, "Why are you towing my car?" Okay. Oh well, and he had to give them a reason. Okay.
And he had a warrant. He had a warrant for it.
And he had a warrant, so he had to give a judge a reason. Somebody had to get a judge to say, "Okay, I see what you're looking for. Here you go."
By the way, as an investigator, just tell the audience, is it probable cause in a circumstance when someone goes missing to ask a judge, "I want a warrant for a family member's vehicle," because they're family and we always look at family? Is that enough of probable cause, or do you have to have a lot more than that?
You just can't, you just can't tell a judge, "Oh, well, because, okay, because they're family." Okay. Now, what you could,
not just that, but statistically speaking, that's always where police begin. They begin with those who are closest to the vulnerable when they go missing. But is that's not enough? That doesn't reach the bar of probable cause?
No. Did you see them impound Ed Smart's car?
I was there and I don't recall. It's
they
been
didn't,
a while, but I don't recall seeing that.
They didn't impound his car. Okay. I mean, just look at how many kidnap cases, okay, where a family member has been kidnapped and the law enforcement agency goes in and says, "Okay, everybody's car is impounded." Okay. No, you can't do that. Okay. Now, what they probably worked off of is the fact that was the last proof of life in a vehicle that was brought over to that house. Okay. So, of course, a judge would say, "Okay, she's 84 years old, disappeared from her house. Your Honor, she was brought over by a family member. Okay, fine. We want to search that car. No problem. Here you go. I think that's enough for you to get that vehicle." Okay. And so, but remember, there's a 10-day return on that search warrant. You get 10 days, okay, by law.
I didn't know it was 10 days.
Oh, yeah, you get 10 days by law to go through the evidence or find the evidence, and then you got to bring that receipt back to the judge unless you ask for an extension. Okay? But then you've got to go back and you've got to give a judge a reason why you need an extension. Okay? The judge just isn't going to say, "Hey,
there's no criminal network is calling them."
No, that's not how the Constitution works, right? Under the Fourth Amendment, and the.
Yeah, brother, I literally,
Their search and
I
seizure.
literally just sent it to you and it deleted. So it had 5830 North Jamatas Drive. Literally, it was a red dot on Nancy's interactive app that you gave me. And now literally the address is gone. And it's a red dot, though, in the same location. It's the USCS Rivera. I have no clue if it's even related. I thought it was so weird. I wanted to show you. No, so when I went,
and they told Brian Enton a week later, we're in the process of returning the car. And then a week later, the same statement, we're in the process of returning the car. But it is odd. And I look at that as a mistake only
Oh,
because
no,
if you're
no.
clearing
So
these
we did
people,
what
my
we started
God,
with yesterday.
clear them
All
and
the
give them their
traffic
vehicle
patterns
back, and don't
were
let,
removed. Like the FBI removed all
journalists
the
like us
OSU cams
question, well,
from it.
what the hell
They
is
were
going
all
on
gone.
then?
And
Because
then
you gave Luke
today,
Daly his
there
car
was a
back
red
within that
dot
10 days. That was the
searching that
silver
address just
Range Rover
randomly
in
Right.
room
showed
number
his
2 on February
whereabouts.
13th. He got his vehicle back within 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I just
I don't know if
screenshotted
they ever
who the
took
fast people
Carlos
searcher, who it is.
Palazuelo's
He's got a
vehicle.
bunch
He
of
was the
alien
DoorDash
codes,
driver.
and I can't find out who it is. But yeah, I just want to pass that on. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you.
With
All right,
huge
brother. Take
firepower,
care.
like
Bye.
just, massive response, multi-agency response that yielded nothing. And we never really learned what was the lead, and was it really a strong lead? Do you see that as a mistake, or do you see those raids as, hey, that's the way this works?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that particular piece of this investigation is a mistake, because they may have, some type of digital footprint that led them to that, particular individual. And, remember, if this person carried a phone into that area where Miss Guthrie lives, okay, then technology today is going to pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to go through and they're going to identify, hey, wait a minute, we've got this, particular ping. It's connected to, this type of problem, i.e. a person or a house or whatever. And then they're going to get a search warrant and they're going to go hit that house just to make sure. And what did we find out? I mean, the guy says, hey, I do deliveries, and yeah, I could have been over in that area. So, they had to vet him. They had to do that. And it's the same thing with the other circumstance. Now, in that circumstance, though, the Range Rover, we're talking about that one, the fact that they took that as a piece of evidence, and they put evidence tapes, remember, on the back hatch, you saw the FBI writing his ID number and the date and time, that's for the chain of custody. Okay, so that piece of evidence now goes on an evidence list, and that car is towed to a processing evidence facility, and of course it's processed. Well, they didn't find anything, because at some point they turned around and they said, okay, you can have your car back, okay? i.e. we can't hold this indefinitely. Now, if they would have found blood or, something that would have been, connected to Miss Guthrie, then you can bet that car it would still be sitting in their evidence facility, because now that evidence becomes exculpatory, right, to whoever they arrest for the defense. The defense now has an opportunity to go look at it themselves. They just can't release it, okay? And that would have to come through a court order. So in that case, they let the gentleman's car go.
But let me ask you about the other issue and I look at this as a big mistake. A reporter came into Sheriff Nanos's office and asked him about authorities going door to door to gun stores with a list of names and photographs, and asking the proprietors of the gun store or the workers there, have you seen any of these people, and can you run them through your system and tell us if they've purchased anything? And we saw interviews with these people in this gun store saying, unfortunately, I just didn't get I'm sad I didn't get a hit. I wanted to help, but no, we couldn't help. That reporter asked Sheriff Nanos about that, and Sheriff Nanos said, that's a lie, as though it didn't happen, when clearly it had happened. We witnessed it. And I wondered if it's, again, the FBI didn't tell them they were doing that, and there's Sheriff Nanos telling a reporter it's a lie.
Well, again, right, we go back to allowing the task force to control the communication, because that's the exact type of statements that it turns out, in fact, it was true. And the sheriff took a position and just kind of shot from the hip. And in this kind of high profile case, you do not shoot from the hip at all. You had better know how to get to the top of the mountain, because people don't get to the top of the mountain by falling there. Okay. And in this case, he keeps falling on the top of the mountain and doesn't realize he's going to get the momentum, and he keeps rolling to the bottom of the mountain. But what he's doing is he's strengthening the defense against Miss Guthrie. He's not strengthening the investigation for her. for the state or for the U.S. Attorney's Office in any way, shape, or form. Because you can bet a guy like Mark Garagos, let's just use Mark for an example, right? High-profile lawyer out of L.A., awesome guy, okay? He's going to grill you on the stand. Trust me, I've been grilled, okay, like the next guy. But that's their job. And when you get off of that stand, and the sheriff will be that guy getting off the stand, he's going to want those statements back. He's going to want them all back, because they're going to put the FBI guy on, to counter his comment and say, hey, didn't you in fact, go to these gun stores with all these folks? Yes, we did. And why did you do that? And he's going to give the answer. Yeah. And then they're going to put the sheriff on and say, well, you didn't know about that, did you? Well, I didn't know about it at the time. What else didn't you know about? And they're going to look at the jury.
There's a million reasons, right? That what you're just laying out being the most important. Mm-hmm. Secondly, you want to have faith what your public officials, are saying is trustworthy. That's hard to deal with now, given how many inconsistencies there have been. But also, don't tell people they're liars. Don't. Just don't. It's a really harsh criticism. And I've had this from the sheriff. I'm not a liar, but he said some things I believe were directed to me. And I just don't think it's appropriate. If you're working on something and you need to keep it quiet. But don't start throwing arrows, slinging arrows at those who are doing our jobs. Last one real quickly. And that is the Cajun Navy. We've come to know the Cajun Navy over years and years, since Hurricane Katrina, at least for me. And I think they was actually the genesis of the Cajun Navy was Hurricane Katrina. And it's just a loose group of individual civilians who sometimes have boats or have dogs or have some kind of savvy about how to search and do rescue, etc. And they sent a representative to ask the sheriff, can we come and help? Can we bring our resources to bear in this case? And was ghosted. I mean, wasn't even given the respect of being told no thank you, just was ignored. And I just wonder, how often does that happen where law enforcement, I hate to say looks a gift horse in the mouth, but in this case, I feel like it really is, because there's no searching going on. And we just found, tan pants in a wash behind Annie Guthrie's home and a knee brace that I guess wasn't collected.
Yeah, that whenever these kind of things happen initially, right, you just don't know what you have initially. So, I think the sheriff's department and their search and rescue, they sent all the resources that they felt that they could have sent, right? But then, to your point, you get to a place where you go, okay, can it hurt the investigation? And the answer is no. When you're looking at an 84-year-old woman, however, it does have to be controlled by somebody in the department, meaning you need to have a liaison that's saying, okay, folks, this is the grid that we're going to search. We need you to get out there, okay? And then you walk them through it. If you find something, don't touch it. Just, put a flag on it, notify us. We'll come out, we'll collect it, we'll photograph it, we'll measure it. We used to call it bag and tag, right? Just don't touch it. Now, if you have an experienced group of searchers, my understanding is there's a lot of former LE, there's a lot of former military folks in this organization. You know what? Why not use them? Okay? Get them on the ground, let them get dirty. They may know something that we don't know. Okay? And I guess that's the key. Law enforcement, we don't always have the answers. Okay. And that's why you put information out to the public and say, look, have you seen this guy on this video? Okay. That's not law enforcement solving this crime. That's the public picking up the phone and saying, yeah, this is, so-and-so, such and such. And the reason I know that is I saw that clothing before he put it on when he was getting in his car, hypothetically, of course. Right. But that's how cases get solved. And if you're resistant to that in your community, guess what? You're not serving your community. Okay. You are, telling your community what to do. And that's not service. Law enforcement there needs to be a paradigm shift there. And that sheriff should be the very first one that should admit it and say, hey, maybe this is a resource. I made another mistake. We should pull them in.
Many eyes make light work, and crowdsourcing has certainly helped to
Absolutely.
solve crimes. Gabby Petito, for one.
Yeah.
Chris McDonough, thank you so much. It's a long list. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you helping me get through it.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.